And we're live, episode number 158 of Tint Wisdom. Thank you for joining and listening or watching. And today I will be joined by Patric Fransko of iMagnet Management and Window Film Pros, amongst other things you may know him from. And we're going to bring him in just momentarily. He's currently in the backstage, just working out some final details. And while we wait, what we're going to be talking about today is VeeCon. So VeeCon just took place over the last week, the end of last week, took place in Indianapolis, and it's a conference put on by Gary Vaynerchuk, Gary V. So I attended it with Patric Fransko, and this is going to be a recap of that. So then without further ado, let me bring Patric Fransko in. And hey, Stephen Williams, thanks for joining. All right, so I have a little intro to read that Patric's agent submitted, and then I'll play the intro. All right. You know, where's Carlos when you need him? I feel like this intro really needs Carlos more than it needs Eric, but I don't see the squeegee anywhere. It's not back there. All right, I'll give it a shot. All right, broadcasting live from the heart of entrepreneurship and innovation. In the blue corner stands a man whose legacy is unmatched, whose spirit is unbroken, and whose passion for success knows no bounds. Joining us from the vibrant lands of Ohio, he stands in testament to tenacity and relentless innovation. Let's make some noise for this unstoppable force in the business world, a man whose reputation precedes himself, powerhouse Patric Fransko.
Talked about in a recent article I wrote was about how much noise, if you will, is out on social media. Dude,
Patric Fransko.
I'm not sure I can live up to the hype of that intro and that video, man. I appreciate the kind words and everything. I'm impressed. Now I feel like it could only potentially go downhill from here. Can I even live up to that?
There's no way you can't live up to it, because all those video clips within that were actual real life video clips. None of that was AI generated. That is all moments that you lived. So you already have lived up to it.
Other than the wrestling part, I'm not sure I was in those clips.
I'm not sure I understand what you're talking about. Those are all powerhouse Patric Fransko clips that were put together.
Well, hey man, it's great to see you again. It was awesome to be at VeeCon this last weekend. Tons of great information was shared. So, I mean, I know we're going to talk a lot about that, but more than anything, I mean, I was really stoked to see you again. Always great to see you.
Thank you. I really feel the same way. It was great hanging out with you. It was great meeting Aaron, meeting Rob, and kind of just that connection, that vibe that you all have amongst yourselves, and then getting to hang out with you all. It was truly just a great time.
Yep, absolutely. So you got back, you arrived, obviously you brought your mom and Betsy too. And I'd met your mom previously at Tinner Battles. Obviously I met Betsy numerous times, but always great to see them. And again, let's jump into it. I mean, there was a lot to talk about. I mean, it's cool to see, so many people from so many different industries. And I would say right out of the gate, and I want to see if you feel the same way. I mean, the energy in that space is just infectious. I mean, even though we were probably the only two people in there that had anything to do with the window film industry, you can't help but be in a room like that and not feel motivated, feel encouraged, whatever you want to say.
Yeah, I knew it was going to be good. I expected, I expected it to just be incredible, but it really is something that, I left there thinking there's 100% chance I'll be back next year. And between now and then, all I want to do is, share how much value I feel like I got out of it, how much I enjoyed it, and how much value I think there is to being part of, this movement that everybody's aware of, but, there's definitely layers of it. And experiencing it in person unlocked a new layer, new level of it that maybe just seeing Gary's videos in passing doesn't hit as deep. So I hope to share some of that experience today with you, reminisce, look through some pictures and videos, and look forward to next year.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's hard to me, I feel like, this was my second VeeCon, as well as spending time with Vayner. One of the things I come away with all the time is I tend to set specific bars or goals that I'm trying to reach. And oftentimes I feel like I come away from these things and say, man, I've set the bar in some ways for myself too low, because it's like you get a chance to meet some other people and you feel like, man, maybe I'm not in a bad way saying I'm not aiming high enough, but you really leave there like full of like, man, I could even do more than I thought that I could do. And that's to me where it really, motivational speeches are fine, but they tend to wear off relatively quickly. Like getting some insight into what some other people are doing and really, internalizing that and say, man, there's no reason I can't do this or do that. It changes. You come home with you come home with some action plans or some thoughts of some action plans. It's different than a motivational speech. I mean, nothing wrong with a motivational speech. I've heard the saying, motivational speeches are like showers. I mean, everybody needs one, but they wear off after a couple days. So it's like, you kind of feel like with motivational speeches, you kind of need to continue to listen to them. But if you can have somebody really connect to something internally to where it really changes your perspective, that's something that you can kind of go forward with.
100%. And
sorry, I'm on a ramble already, man.
No. It wasn't a ramble at all. It's just, when you said I had heard that saying, but I never connected the day. It just made me think of how many days a week you shower. Because if the shower wears off every few days, it's maybe two. I'm just kidding. It was just
hey man, I'm Italian. I have to shower every single day, or I'm greasy. Like, that's just part of my Italian, heritage.
I share that Italian heritage. So to your point, certainly there is the creativity that kind of gets unlocked when you travel. Your mind tends to open. Any travel, I find, just kind of puts you in a different space. Being in an environment with so many different people's perspectives, different scopes and scales. One of the people that we both had the pleasure to hear was Scooter Braun. And Scooter Braun told a story of how he just sold his company for $1.2 billion. And he started from when he was, just beginning to promote and learn how to promote and took you through the path. So you're talking about somebody with, $1.2 billion. We also heard from a lady who 10 years ago started a venture capital fund while on food stamps and raised $1 million.
Dude, that was a crazy story. Story.
So and then you hear everything in between. You hear Drew Barrymore share her experience coming out of being an actor and into creating products, and how she views the business world and how she fits into the business world as a mom and just as a person. And
Jessica Alba, same thing.
100%. And, I hope to just kind of almost go one by one in the ones that were most impactful for us, so we can kind of share some thoughts on those, because all those different perspectives leave you not only with creative thoughts and inspiration, but I feel like you're also I was also able to grab and hone in on things that I find important to myself, but hearing it reiterated by others help me know that I should even put more energy towards those things and magnify some of those.
Yeah, I will say one thing, and I'm sure we'll touch on this as we talk. Man, I kind of felt like a common thread through a lot of these talks, which I think was great, is just the idea of patience, man. We all feel like everything should happen like yesterday. And I mean, you talk about Scooter Braun and just about putting that deal together, that $1.2 billion deal, and how he didn't go right for the deal. I mean, he really spent time to understand the other company and how they were going to put this deal together.
Hold on, back up. He actually held off 2 weeks on the deal because of a tarot card reading.
Yeah. No, I mean, but my point is, he talked a lot about looking at the deal, more what it was going to look like on the other side of the deal than just getting the deal done. And I think a lot of times we get so focused on something. And one, I mean, we maybe rush through it, don't spend the time we do. And we may be doing all the right things, but we're just not patient enough. And some of these things that I felt like was a common thread was just that a lot of these people that really succeeded, it was not overnight. It was doing a lot of good things consistently over a long period of time, and being patient and understanding that it's going to take some time. I think in the internet world, Instagram, TikTok, we tend to think like, man, everybody's just, hitting like fast, and it's not true. It just doesn't happen that way.
Sure. Patience and timing. I heard quite a few of the speakers mention that timing has to be right and somewhat out of your hands in a sense.
Yeah. Other than Dogface, you and I got a chance to meet Dogface, and that was pretty instantaneous. He shoots a video on a skateboard, drinking cranberry ocean spray. Next thing you know, the dude's everywhere. So
it was right. I mean, certainly one of those viral moments, but still timing had to come together, because I don't know if that would have happened on Facebook, right? Like it was like TikTok and again, timing. So yeah. And that was another gentleman we were able to meet at VeeCon. Take a picture with.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, I know you said you wanted to kind of go through people one at a time. Man, that's going to be tough. I mean, I don't know if you literally, just to give people that are listening in a little bit of perspective on the event, you have a main stage, which they typically kick the day off. Oh,
why don't we do this? I actually have a couple of videos queued up.
Yeah, sure.
So we can go through them. Now, the first video, because this will give some visual perspective to everybody of what the event looked like and so on, and then we'll jump into discussing it.
Sounds
so
good.
The first video is actually of a recap of the very, very first day. Okay, let me pause that and answer Maverick's question, because it's a really good question. The way the tickets worked are you had to own one of VeeFriend's original NFTs, and that would basically kick off a ticket NFT to the event. However, if you didn't own one, you could just buy one, because a lot of those tickets were on the resale market. So you could buy a ticket, and it cost, depending on when you bought it, anywhere from about $175 to maybe $250, just depending that last month or so. So anybody could have gone by buying an NFT for about $200, which I think was an incredible value. So I'm going to play this recap video. It's of the very first day, which they call the field day. You'll see why. It takes place outside in a field. The other 2 days are all indoors with the speakers. This is the beginning day. Now, Patrick, you experienced the field day, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So I did not. I missed the field day. So I'm going to hit this video, and when we get back, maybe you could walk us through
some
of that.
Sounds great.
All right. And field day. We have volume, maybe. No volume.
There we go.
Let's go VeeCon!
That was pretty sweet. It was like a human, claw game,
Did you do it?
No, I did not. All right.
All right. So field day.
So field day, it was kind of a day for everybody that's just arriving. So it's going on for a number of hours. If you can imagine, it's in this huge grass area right in the center of Indianapolis, and they've got this whole thing sort of gated off so that only people could get in. There's all kinds of games. There's all kinds of booths and things like that Gary had a bunch of vendors that were giving out a ton of free stuff. And then just essentially just networking. I mean, a lot of music was playing, a lot of different things you could do. The great thing about it is it gives everybody a chance to sort of convene on one place and meet old friends from last year, meet some new people that you don't know. A lot of the people that I know at Vayner that work for Vayner Media were there. So I got a chance really early on to connect with all my friends and stuff like that at Vayner.
Damn. Name drop.
No, and then, well, it's just they're there working the event, actually.
I understand.
So,
I get it.
So then the night sort of culminates in heading over towards this pavilion, this performance pavilion, and then they had a couple different musical acts. It ended with Busta Rhymes. Gary was out talking on a variety of occasions. So at the end of the day, everybody finishes the night at this concert, and then, everybody heads out to, into Indianapolis to restaurants, bars, whatever after that. But really fun way to get the event kicked off. There wasn't really a whole lot. Somebody led a yoga session out on the grass with a river in the background. So there was just literally anything you really wanted to engage with. There was like something for everybody. And there was even a lot of people that had brought their kids. And I mean, talking like 4, 5, 6, 7-year-old kids, because there was even, the V friends that were dressed up, and there were games and things like that. So literally there was something for everybody. I mean, I spent most of the time primarily just talking to other people and networking and, taking in some of the different things that they had there. But it was kind of a good way to kick the event off.
Okay. So day 2, we'll play a recap video now. Day 2 and day 3 was inside the Lucas Oil Stadium in downtown Indianapolis. And so it was indoors, and you'll see more what it's about. That's when the speakers and so on. So let's pull that back up and watch it. Day 2.
So should we not be talking
We are
over
at the
this?
main
Are we
stage.
okay?
We can talk.
So just to give you guys perspective, this event is primarily happening on the main floor, like where the Indianapolis Colts play. There's a huge stage set up, which I'm sure there'll be some pictures and things like that to give perspective. And then there's a bunch of rooms off the main stadium floor that could also easily seat hundreds of people that the individual sessions would be at. But the slide you just saw was one of the fun ways to get down from the upper concourse down to the stadium floor. They had this really cool slide you could take. So the perspective is, imagine the inside of an interior football stadium, and the whole floor is taken up with either games or booths or the main stage.
Right. And, something that, like, some of these clips, you can get that perspective of just how big it's a stadium, right? But one of the things that really stood out to me that I so much appreciated is how big the space was, but then how not crowded it was. So there was usually 5 different stages, I believe, and there was different speaking sessions, group sessions, and individual sessions going on in each one of the stages at all times. And I really enjoyed that you could walk into just about any of them, regardless of who the speaker was, how big of a name, and basically almost sit anywhere in the room you wanted, because the space was so big. And
yeah, I mean, the other thing about it is there's not clearly there are certain times when certain speakers are coming in where they're entering through a certain area, but I'm always amazed at VeeCon how much access you have. When I first arrived that first day for day 2, I walked down onto the floor, and one of the very first people I see is Jesse Itzler, who was one of the main speakers of the event, kind of just walking by himself with somebody else. And we stopped and chatted with him for a while and got a picture. Jesse Itzler was just up on the right there when you were, we were talking. So easy access to people like that. And just, and then we sat down in our seats, and literally, if you're into Gary Vee, like literally, I kid you not, I sent Eric pictures. My team and I are literally sitting right behind Gary's brother, his mom, and his dad, right in front of us. So it's not like you're like there's this section where everybody's tucked away, and then there's the people that are they're attending. It's kind of at any given time, Gary's walking around, speakers are walking around. I know your mom got a picture with Damon John when she walked down and was able to easily get a picture with Damon John. So it's not like these people are like go on the stage and then are ushered away and nobody has access. If you want access, you can fairly easily, get access to somebody.
For sure. I mean, after Tom Bilyeu spoke, I walked outside by chance, and if you wanted to maybe take a moment of his time, it was you competing with maybe 10 other people. And then after a few minutes, basically by himself.
Yep.
And I mean, that was kind of the case for anybody. So we just got the question, how many speakers were there?
There were 200 speakers. I actually spoke to Andy Kranak, who's the guy at VaynerMedia that's in charge of this entire event. And he mentioned to me when I talked to him at the field day, Andy was out there hanging out with everybody. This is a guy that's one of Gary Vaynerchuk's top people, top 5 or 6 people in his whole organization, in charge of the entire VeeFriends situation. He's hanging out at field day. You just walk right up. I mean, no crowd around him. So I was talking to him, asked him how many speakers, and he said they had 200 speakers scheduled for either the main stage or one of the secondary stages. And these were all people that had built multi-million-dollar. There wasn't anybody that was on. I mean, you could see some of the speakers, Ariana Huffington, all these people. None of these people are small time. I mean, they're all big time. I think the person right next to Ariana Huffington is the one that started the venture capital.
Exactly.
Fund.
Yep. So there were tons of speakers. Ariana Huffington was one of the memorable ones for me. She's very inspirational. And one of the topics that she really spoke on, because it's my understanding the foundation of her current business venture, is like focuses around getting proper sleep and rest and the importance of it. And I'm 100% on board with how important sleep is. It's really, to be able to function at 100%, like you need sleep. It's just, there's no way around it, I don't believe. And, it's one of her great points.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, she's really been a big advocate. I've even heard her go at Gary about that and being like, and Gary's like, hey man, I get 8 hours a night. But I mean, people tend to think he's all like hustle culture and things like that. But even he would admit like, hey man, I need 8 hours a night. It's not, so I think that that's a great message, because a lot of people think, man, I've got to be burning the candle at both ends and in the middle and only getting 4 hours of sleep a night. But you got a lot of successful people on that stage that are like, I'm getting 8 hours a night, and Gary included.
Did you happen to remember Cesar Millan's talk?
I did. I mean, I can't really, man, there were so many people that talked that it's kind of hard to remember which one was which, but I was in the stadium when he was talking. I mean, I remember, but I can't remember anything particular that he, that I could pull out and recall about that session.
Well, what stood out to me was he spoke a lot about his perspective on how animals kind of interact, like how the relationship works, what they look for, and kind of getting into the vibes of training and like what it takes. And it really revolves around the person that's dealing with the animal more than anything. But then, that expanded out to kind of his perspective on life and having a, happy, relaxed life. It was just a great, I thought, perspective on, how it transitioned from animal training to essentially, obviously, we're just all animals and we need to, have some sort of like leadership and, you're going to take on the anxieties or the or positivities of those around you and so on.
No, I think that part of it that I do remember, I felt like was, again, we were talking a little bit earlier about like the patience thing or whatever. I feel like one of those threads, and that was kind of one of those things that was, the idea that it's like, I think we all sometimes, because we're not patient, maybe push a little bit harder than we should on certain situations or whatever. And I like that idea about, same way with dealing with animals, like having that more relaxed, doesn't mean you don't work hard, but like if you're tense or you're pushing or you're stressed, the other people that you're dealing with, whether it's an animal or another person, are going to feed off that stress or that anxiety or whatever that case is. And I think that's an interesting point that I think he made about like, in some ways dealing with animals, if an animal feels that you're anxious or upset or angry or whatever, the animal's going to respond to that. And in some ways it's exactly the same as if you're dealing with another human being.
Right. So
that gives you guys that are watching, though, a little bit of perspective of the breadth of the people that are there. It's not all in one specific category. It's all across the board.
Right. And the amount of chief marketing officers from just different companies like Aloe Yoga, Beat Saver for those Oculus users, because that was one that just stood out to me.
JP Morgan Chase.
The CEO of Kickstarter was there. I mean, every room was packed with companies or people you recognize. And if you didn't recognize them, reading a brief, hearing them speak for a second just got you interested. It was just one of those talks. And part of that was, the sessions were very, they were all led by a moderator. So whether it was a one-on-one interview or a one-on-three interview, there was a moderator. And the way they kept the sessions back to back so tight, there was less than 60 seconds from when somebody got off the stage to when the next one was starting. There was no time in between. And I love that fast-paced nature of it. You had to pick the room you were going to go to at the expense of missing out on everything else that was happening. And then you didn't have a minute to waste. And while this was happening, you may have missed Gary Vee roaming around, taking pictures and shaking hands, because that's also going on outside.
Yeah, I mean, not outside, inside the arena, but outside the rooms.
Outside.
Just to give you guys some perspective on the rooms, there was the main stage at what would be like one end zone all the way to maybe the 30 or 40 yard line. Then there was an open area where there were booths and games and things like that. But on the other end of the stadium, what would be the other end zone, there was two large meeting rooms that could easily seat hundreds of people each. And then upstairs on both sides of the stadium in the concourse areas, there were also rooms that would seat a couple hundred people. So literally you had the main stage and then you had 4 additional rooms. So at any given time, there might be 4 different stages happening at one given time. And as Eric said, you kind of had to look at the schedule and determine, who do I really want to see? And in some cases with my team and we would divide and conquer. Like we'd be like, we really want to see both of these. So you go to that one, I'm going to go to this one so that we could see both of them, because you just had to make choices. You couldn't be everywhere at once.
Now, Jordan had asked that he mentioned that sometimes he feels as if he has too much patience. Was there anybody who spoke about anything like that stands out to you? Too much patience?
I think Jesse Itzler hit on that really well. And the fact that he was talking to an entrepreneur that was there, that was showing him an idea. And, and the entrepreneur asked him, do you think this can work? And Jesse said, well, it can work. The question is, what are you willing to do? And Jesse talked a lot about, the difference between can you do it and will you do it? And a lot of people get caught. Like there's a lot of things where, I think you can have great ideas and talk about them and have too much, if you want to call it too much patience, but inactivity. So you have the greatest idea. It probably would work, but it's going to take a lot of work. So it sits in this category of, can you do it? And the answer to that is yes, you can. But then shifting over to that, will you do it? And I think Jesse talked a lot about like that. If you really want it bad enough, like nothing stopping you. And I don't know if that fits into the patience category as much as I think sometimes people might utilize patience based on his talk, utilize patience as an excuse as to why something's not happening, rather than saying you're just not ready to put in the time that it's going to take to make that work. So you say you're being patient, but the reality is you're really not getting after it. So that, it's like, don't lie to yourself. And Jesse was telling this entrepreneur, it's a great idea and it can work. The question is, will you actually make it work? Just because it can work doesn't mean it's going to work if you don't put in the time and effort and perseverance to make it work.
Sure. That's a great answer. Pat, if was there something that stood out to you, like one thing that you really just took away from it, an overarching, that is something that you took away from it that you're actually going to apply to your life, to your business, over this next year?
I mean, I think a lot of it, if I had to say, one of the things that hit me the hardest there was I tend to be somebody that really tries to, my default answer a lot of times is yes. And sometimes that allows me to get stretched too thin, and it allows me not to maybe go in as hard and as deep and as passionate about the things I really feel like are the things I love the most about. And I think a couple of the sessions I heard really just kind of convicted me to be like, hey, I've got to really go all in on the things that are the most important and not try to do everything. I know that's a really broad answer, but I think if you have real passion for something, it doesn't even feel like work, and you're willing to put in the hours and things like that because it's something you love and you're passionate about. But a lot of times we get spread into areas we're really not passionate about, and maybe there are even areas where you can make money and things like that. But what it does is it pulls you away from the area that you're most, suited to and most passionate about. And the reality might be it's better to not pursue those other areas and go all in on the areas that you're most passionate about. And if you do that, you're probably going to see even greater success in the future, if not financially, at least in your happiness and fulfillment and things like that. And I think one of the things I took away from several of them is I maybe sometimes spread myself a little thin and get involved in areas that, not that we don't have the ability to do them, but it's really not a focus that we should be putting our time into. And I'm going to really try going forward this next year to say, quite honestly, to go against my default of saying yes and start to get better at saying no to certain things.
Great answer. Now, is there anything that kind of spun you for a 180? Something that you kind of took away from it, that you went into it kind of thinking completely differently? Because I feel like what you just explained, was probably a long time coming, and then it just comes to a head and you're like, hey, I got to do it. Right. Is there anything that you went into that feeling one way, you came out of it just feeling a completely different way?
Probably, I don't know if I'd say I went into it with a complete feeling of one way, but maybe not feeling as much a certain way, is that just the understanding that there's no such thing as status quo. You're either pushing and growing or you're falling behind. There's no middle. My business is now between 8 and 9 years old. And sometimes there's a tendency, because we've been successful, we've continued to grow, to think, well, it would kind of be nice to settle into a comfortable spot, if you will, where we're at. We've got a great team. We've grown every year. We're at a really good scale right now. And there's part of me that would be like, man, it'd be really sweet to sort of settle into this spot, and really got hit across the face a couple times this weekend. Like, that doesn't exist. You either are pushing to continue to move forward, or even if it's imperceptible and you don't realize it, the minute you try to go into that status quo mode, you start falling behind. So there's really no option. Either you're pushing forward or you're falling behind. There is no status quo. And I would say I had gotten to a point in my agency where I started to feel like maybe we could settle into something that's more of a, it doesn't mean we're going to go out there and try to pull in business that doesn't make sense, but you can't ever really take your foot off the gas. You're either moving forward or you're falling behind. I would say that would be one thing that came through, to me, is that there is no settling into a spot. Does that make sense? I mean, I feel like I kind of talked all around it. It's kind of a broader topic, and for me, that probably means, again, saying no to some projects we probably shouldn't take on because that isn't really in our wheelhouse, or isn't something that suits our company well, which frees us up to do more of the things that we really enjoy, and then continuing to add good team players. And just, again, it's not, to me, it's a matter of freeing up. By saying no to some of those things is going to free up some bandwidth. So I feel like if you're really doing something you enjoy, it's going to allow the company to grow, but it's not going to feel like we're working harder because we're going to enjoy what we're doing more.
Yeah, that totally makes sense.
So what about you? You're asking me all questions. Like, you should turn like those same questions. Like, what did you see that like really stood out to you, or something that maybe flipped you a 180? I mean, I know you're a very forward-thinking business person and thinker, so it's hard to go into a room like that and not in some way, shape, or form have something hit you a little bit,
Sure.
differently.
Sure. If I went through every speaker, I think I could pull something from every single one of them. But what comes to mind is more of an overarching thing that I left with from Gary Vee himself, from observing the VeeCon and him, was, as much as I know, I know how important community is.
Wow.
For people, for a business, but like community is everything. Like, again, for people, just people, but for a business, for every aspect of everything, how important community is. Seeing his execution on it, the way he is, how old is he? Like 50?
I think he's just shy, 48.
Okay. So call him 48. And he's, in his words, just getting started. VeeFriends, which is a community. I mean, obviously it's a community, but like it's more than a community. It's all that. His words were, not his words, because I'm not quoting it exactly, but he said something similar to, you don't judge a man when he's 2 years old. Yeah. Saying VeeFriends is 2 years old. He compared it to a 2-year-old child and said, you don't judge a man by how he is when he's 2 years old. And that long-term perspective from somebody who's almost 50, and then you compound that with Ariana Huffington, which is in her 70s, speaking about a business venture she's just kind of in its infancy in a way, and how she started the Huffington Post when she was in her late 50s, I think 58. It really just puts life into perspective, because you're old to the people younger than you, and you're young to the people that are older than you. But it's easy to kind of always feel old, potentially.
Yeah.
Even absolutely. If you feel young, even if you feel young inside, it's sometimes maybe you can't help but think about the number and that it's counting down.
Well, the other thing too, I think you touched on is, and I'm not just saying this, I think Eric would confirm what I'm saying. It is it's hard to explain bringing that many thousands of people together, and everybody is friendly. Everybody is open. Everybody is willing to be engaged in a conversation. And that comes from the top. I mean, Gary kind of preaches that, but your point about community is like, there's thousands of people in this arena that obviously their connection point is VeeFriends and Gary Vaynerchuk, but nobody seems to be walking around there with any airs about them at all. From the people that are speaking on the stage to anybody in the arena. I mean, I mentioned to you, like, it's just really hard to find anybody in that place that's a jerk. It's like, I didn't run into one person that I thought was a jerk the entire time we were there. And when you bring that many people together, that in and of itself speaks volumes about the community that he's built and his ability to, if you want to call it, lead that community and set the example. There's nobody in that arena that's working that show harder than Gary. I mean, that guy tries to make himself available and shake as many hands, sign as many autographs, talk to as many people. I mean, for somebody that's achieved the level that Gary has, to do what he does there voluntarily is, I think that sets the tone that there's nobody in that arena that's above that human interaction and that friendliness and kindness.
Right. And now, again, it took place in the Lucas Oil Arena, which probably seats, who knows, 30, 50,000 people. He maybe had 5 to 10,000 people there. There's no doubt that he could have sold more tickets if he wanted to sell tickets, but I don't believe it was about that. To me, it's clearly a community play. That's why it's limited to NFT holders. It's not about Joe Blow off the street coming in. It's about the community members that are involved getting together. And that's how you end up with thousands of people, like you said, thousands of people that are all like-minded in the sense of they're friendly, their intentions there.
There's only 10,250 VeeFriends and VeeFriend one. So, and he said that event is limited to that's it. That's who gets the ticket. So even if you buy a ticket from a VeeFriend holder, there's never going to be more than 10,250 people there. If he opened that wide open to anybody in his community spending $300 to attend, that place would have been packed up to the rafters.
But it wouldn't have been that same vibe. Now, that's kind of, I guess, one of the things that, if I had to answer the second question, which was the 180, the thing that I guess I went into it differently than I came out of it specifically would be, or that stands out to me would be kind of my views on NFTs. And, like, we've obviously been kind of, talking about them, interacting with them for the last couple of years now, year and a half or so on, having to go out and buy those tickets. And then, me and you kind of making some transactions here, your way to me. Thank you, Patrick. You're an awesome human being. So anyway, that got me more familiar with the process. And I ended up even buying a VeeFriends 2 series just from OpenSea, just for fun. And then going into it and seeing, the way NFTs are talked about, the way it was executed at his event and so on, it just makes it something that I don't want to, NFTs are dead, right? That's kind of the vibe in a way, like from people on the outside, like it's not the topic anymore. Nobody's getting rich off of them. Prices went down and so on. But Gary Vee has been preaching that and saying, hey, they're all going to go to zero except a few. But hearing Tom Bilyeu and Tom Bilyeu's huge future vision on what he's building and so on, Tint Wiz did create NFTs that are in OpenSea now. We never launched the project, but it got me thinking not only about that project and maybe having a resurgence of it, but another project that I want to work on. So NFTs kind of went from something that I wasn't going to put any effort into anymore, frankly, to something I feel deserves a ton of effort. Frankly.
I mean, I think that Gary nailed it on the head. A couple years ago when he tried to warn people that 99% of these are going to go to zero. And there was a huge flurry of interest and a bunch of people that were, quite frankly, just doing a cash grab. Then it all fell apart. But there is a definite way that NFTs can be used from a utility standpoint. I mean, a great example of that is VeeFriend 1. I mean, that's how you get into this event, is by holding an NFT. You go through the gate at the event, by showing showing literally access that you have that NFT. You have to show that you're holding that NFT. The ticket in and of itself is an NFT that you have to show that you have in your wallet. And they literally, it gets assigned to you and they check the NFT against your name for you to go in. So I think there's a utility aspect to NFTs in addition to like some of them, like the board, the apes. You might ask, like, what's the utility there? And I don't know that I could actually answer that question, but there's certainly, with regard to Ethereum-based NFTs, there's certainly a utility aspect that is only going to be utilized more. I mean, I think you're going to see season tickets to sports games. Like, I'm a season ticket holder to the Cleveland Browns. I feel like it won't be that many more years before that season ticket is issued as an NFT. I mean,
the technology behind how you got in there with the app and, connecting your NFTs to them. And then what it would do is you go to pull up your ticket and it would pull up a QR code with a timer. And the QR code was good for maybe 15 seconds, 20 seconds. And they had to scan it. So you had to, like, there was no way around it. There's no switching wristbands. There's no nothing. And
there's no
screenshotting.
Yeah, there's no.
Nothing. To me, that technology seems like better than any like event it uses, period. So that alone seemed like a thing in itself.
Yeah, I think that, I know I saw that Josh from Green Valley says access to the club, virtual country club. One of the individuals I met at VeeCon, literally, they created an NFT for a nightclub that is one of the more popular nightclubs in Miami, and they only sold a certain number of them. And what this NFT got you was guaranteed, red velvet rope access at any time. Basically, they sold a certain number of them and it guaranteed you a table and it guaranteed you access to the club, which would be a club that on any given weekend night would probably have hundreds of people waiting in line to get there. They only, I believe, sold 1,000 of those NFTs. So if you're a businessman, even if you live in LA, but once a month you're in Miami, the question is, what is the value of that NFT? There's a utility to it.
Right.
Because if you hold one of those NFTs, that's your ticket into the club. And immediately, if you're a businessman, you want to take some friends into the club, that's your ticket into the club. I don't know all the things that are tied into that NFT with how many people you can bring in. But my point is, there's a situation where you own something, it's got a utility, you can sell that. At some point in time, somebody may come up to you and say, hey, man, I really need that access to the club. I'll give you 10 times what you paid for it so that I can own that NFT. That's right. Where I really feel like NFTs are going to go, is the underlying utility attached to the NFT. Where I think before there were just people pushing out NFTs of any variety with no utility attached, and people were paying crazy amounts of money. And then it's like, what's the substance behind it? There's really there really wasn't any substance behind a lot of these projects. So it's no secret that they went to zero because there was nothing behind them in the first place.
That's right. That's right. And that's where I can only dream about all the substance that's behind being a VeeCon, VeeFriends Series 1 owner. Now, at the beginning, I mentioned how I want to spend the next year basically promoting this event. It's just one of those things. I really feel like this event, I brought my mom and my wife, and the reason being was because I had a feeling it was going to be an incredible event. And why wouldn't I want to share that event with those closest to me? If it's going to provide me so much value, I would love to provide value for my friends and family. So with that said, I would like to get a giveaway going. And what this giveaway is going to do is, by hashtagging VeeCon 2023 in the comments, it's going to gather all the entries. And then at some point in this, not maybe at the end, but at some point, we're going to do a giveaway. And the winner of that giveaway will get a ticket to next year's VeeCon and a hotel for the stay. So yeah, you just have to make it there, but you'll have your stay and your ticket handled for you.
Dang. I didn't even know you were going to do that, man. That's pretty sweet.
The element of surprise is one that I'm just such a big fan of. And here it is.
Yeah. I mean, the event next year, I feel like I could tell you that this year's event was bigger than last year's event and better than last year's event. I know Josh at Green Valley was at last year's event. Josh, man, all of those hiccups last year, the lines and all the things like that, man, Andy and the team at Vayner ironed that out. This year's event was so much smoother, so much better run. And I only imagine that in next year it's going to even be better. I mean, how much better, how much progress they made between VeeCon 1 and VeeCon 2 was such a quantum leap. And at the end of the event, I touched base. I saw Andy towards the end of the event, and he said they were already talking about improvements they can make. So I think 2024 is going to be even better than, this year's event, because I think they're committed to continuing to improve it. And I feel like as it builds momentum, I think the speakers that are going to want to speak at the event, I mean, everything is just going to get better speakers, better venue, and they haven't even announced where it's going to be at yet. They've teased around at a couple different things, but they haven't specifically announced. But I mean, God willing, I mean, short of something major happening, I mean, I have every intention on being there. I mean,
so it definitely, first of all, this next one will be the third one. So the series 1 gives, a ticket for the first, second, and third. So, it feels like if you're not going to want to miss the third one, because the fourth one could be like something completely different. Right. And just experiencing the second one, you definitely get the vibe that you're experiencing something great very early. Like you're early to the party, and, don't miss the third one because you're still early to the party, I'm sure, at the third one.
Yeah, and I think that the reason that Eric could even do something like this, just to give you guys an insight, to be like, okay, well, I don't hold a VeeCon 1 or VeeFriend 1. How's Eric going to give me access? There are many people that own VeeFriend 1s that own multiples, that own 50 VeeFriend 1s, 100 VeeFriend 1s, and obviously you only need one, so they get 100 tickets to the event, even though they're only one person. So there are ways, just like with a concert ticket or other things, where people that either can't attend the event or have multiple VeeFriend 1s, so they have multiple tickets, will sell those tickets. They're not selling the VeeFriend 1, they're just selling the ticket to VeeCon, and that's how how Eric will be able to access a ticket to get you in, even though you're not a VeeFriend 1 holder.
That's right.
So I was wondering how that whole thing would work.
And that ticket, I believe you can let somebody use it and keep your NFT, but let somebody use the ticket, or, you can purchase the NFT ticket itself, which is how I did it, which will be how we do it for the winner, so that they can actually keep that NFT afterwards, because that ticket NFT, can then be burned and get you access to different promotional, insider things, and there's games you can play and so on.
I mean, or just kept. I mean, it's like one of those things the one analogy I heard is it's 100 times more people say that they were at Woodstock than were actually there in attendance. As time goes by and we all have, digital wallets, these NFTs, it's literally a ticket to show you were at VeeCon 2024. And, in those cases, I mean, in some ways, some people I've heard it described some people might flex on having a cool car or a cool watch. And some people might flex on the fact that they own a VeeCon 1 or a VeeFriend 1, or that they went to VeeCon 2023. It's digital proof that you were there. You were in attendance. You had a ticket. And again, that may or may not be important to somebody, but some people would be I mean, I've kept both of my tickets and I don't plan on burning them. I like the fact that I could just say, hey, I was at, hopefully, God willing, all 3 of the VeeCons, and I have all 3 tickets in my wallet to prove it,
All right, so let's find out who's going to go next year.
Oh, you giving it away already?
Let's do it. I mean, the people who entered are the people who are actively watching. The people who joined later should have been here earlier.
Josh
in case
has been entering. That kid, Josh, you already own a couple of VeeFriend.
Doesn't make a difference. So the winner is going to win the ticket, the NFT ticket to get access to VeeCon and their hotel stay for the entire time they would need to be there. They're just going to need to get there. Now, if for some reason the winner can't go or is already going or whatever, they can gift it to anybody they want. So the only thing that they should do is make sure it doesn't go to waste. So let's, last chance, hashtag VeeCon 2023, and let's hit the draw button and do our first.
Dang. Just so you guys know, too, one of the things that was floated out, was essentially this thing being in Dubai. So be prepared. This could be anywhere.
It's not going to be in Dubai, guys, because like if everybody has to get a passport and fly to Dubai, the attendance is going to be, it's going to be in the U.S. Atlanta.
No, I agree. I think it's going to be in the U.S. too. I'm just saying. I mean,
yeah. All right, so let's do a drawing. There's
we got one coming in right under the wire, Tony.
1 in 13 chance. Let's hit draw and let it roll. I like this feature. It makes giveaways like really easy.
Dennis.
Congratulations.
That's really cool. Congrats, Dennis.
Purple confetti and everything. Cool. So the tickets aren't available yet. So there's nothing to actually happen right now. But as soon as they get announced and as soon as tickets get available, we'll get that underway. And hopefully what we can even maybe do is document some of the process of how to buy the ticket and how to get your wallet and just kind of the simple stuff, just so that anybody else who wants to go can become more familiar with it as well, because it is actually easy, but it's intimidating.
Yeah, just so you guys know the way that the tickets happen, everybody that has a VeeFriend 1 residing in their wallet, about 90 days before the next VeeCon, a ticket to the event will be deposited automatically in the wallet. So you can't buy a secondary ticket like what Eric's talking about until that ticket even gets deposited. So it probably won't even be, you won't even be able to buy a ticket until like 90 days out from the next event, because they won't get deposited in it. Nobody's got the tickets for next year yet. They don't exist.
But when they do, we have our first giveaway.
Yep.
Cool.
That's awesome, man. I like that feature too, because everybody knows there's no shenanigans going on. It's right. It's coming on. It's right there on the spot. So
straight from StreamYard. It takes all the guesswork out of it. No counting numbers. Who was first? Who was second? Just rock and roll.
Cool.
So, Pat, whether it be VeeCon, whether it be iMagnet, whether it be Window Film Pros, what's at the top of your mind right now? Is there anything,
I mean, fresh off of coming back from VeeCon, I think I've got some exciting ideas of some things I might want to do with Window Film Pros. And I mean, like the consumer awareness program and some things with that going forward. iMagnet, I'm fortunate to have some great people working for me, and I'm really excited because not only do I have a fire in my gut about where we're going to go, they've got a fire in their gut. Ronnie, who you met at the show, I mean, he's, I feel like, Ronnie is kind of like me, 20 years ago, which is exciting because, I mean, being around somebody like that, we both sort of feed off of each other, which, I mean, I'm really excited about what that's going to mean. Tim asks, will you bring back Monday mornings? Actually, Tim, I'm talking about that, and actually it's probably going to be a Marketing Mondays that includes both Ronnie and I in a more conversational format, as well as having some people send in questions as well. So there will be Marketing Mondays coming back, but it's going to be a slightly different format. But to your point, Eric, I think...
Can we get the theme song real quick? And just a celebration of Marketing Mondays with things, guys. Marketing Mondays.
We talked about in a recent article I wrote was about...
Okay, go ahead, Pat.
There you go. So anyway, I guess across the board, I'm excited about all those things. I'm excited that, I think I've said before, I've been fortunate to spend some time at VaynerMedia learning from the best. And now that during COVID, a lot of the people left Manhattan because people just wanted to get out of Manhattan. So there were people had moved to DC, moved to suburbs, moved out of the state. And now a lot of those people are coming back to the Hudson Yards, VaynerMedia. So I'm excited. I connected with the people that I knew at Vayner, and I'm planning on going up to New York and spending some more time with them when I get the opportunity. And you can come too. So, I mean, so I'm excited about things. Kind of feel like 2020, the rest of 2023 and going into 2024 really feels to me like we've put, COVID into the rearview mirror totally now, and everybody's sort of getting back at it, and that's exciting for me. I'm excited to get back to not having some of those hurdles in place that COVID put in everybody's path over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
What about you? What are you thinking about coming out of that? Did you have more videos you wanted to show too? I didn't know. You had mentioned you have a bunch of videos you wanted to show. I didn't know.
There's one.
Much noise, if you will, is out on social media. Hey, that's great. In typical Gary fashion, I brought him a picture of him and I 11 years ago, and gave him a copy of it, and he was like, totally like a typical Gary fashion. I probably can't even. There was several expletives that were said, but super like cool to have like spent, have known him for that long, and I'm excited to potentially look at some things. I know I shared with you one of my goals for the next year that I'm not going to share here publicly, but you kind of know one of the goals I'm shooting at.
Can I share it?
What's that?
Can I share it here publicly?
No, because I don't want to. If it doesn't come to fruition, I don't want to have, But I shared it with you, and I shared it with my team.
But you just said, I feel like, is the epitome of like what Gary's keynote at the end on fear, and like don't be afraid to put something out there just in case somebody might be like, it's not gonna happen.
Yeah, I'll share it. So one of my goals for this next year is that I will be speaking at VeeCon next year. Hopefully, I'm going to work my connections, hopefully within VaynerMedia, and really be working on. I've been speaking at a lot of different events lately. So I've set a goal to. I know it'll probably be a secondary stage and probably hopefully part of a panel or whatever, but it really doesn't matter. I'm really going to try to find myself in that speaking slot. And in the last month, I've spoken at 3 different events. So I'm getting more opportunities to speak. So I want to continue. One of the things I want to do going forward is to continue to cultivate that. And I think at the culmination of this year, I'd love to be on the slate to talk next year. So we'll see how it goes.
Well, I'm cheering for you, and I will be cheering for you when you're on stage as well. So I can't wait. I can't wait to see you.
I'll give you a shout. If I'm up there, dude, you're getting a shout out from the stage. You were one of the first people I shared that with. So you will get a shout out along with Rob, who's in the audience. I see that was.
I can't wait to see what Rob says to you as you're going up on stage. Cause like the comedy that came out of both of you, the banter, the back and forth between you two was like, is hilarious and in the best brotherly way.
Yeah, Rob and I have known each other for a long, long time. So there's a relationship there that it's one of those relationships that we could not see each other for a couple of years and see each other, and it's like we picked right back up, and we never miss an opportunity to rib each other. So that's always, it's always good to spend time with Rob. I see him in the audience, and he was going to share my goal, whether I decided to share it or not, because he already posted it in there.
Right. That's the kind of guy he is. That's the kind of relationship you have.
So, but no, it's again, to me, I definitely feel like, coming out of an event like that, I feel like, and hopefully I'm interested to hear your take on this. I feel like that you want to stretch more, like you want to throw the peg out there further and say, I know I'm speaking at a lot of events, spoke at 3 this last month, but that, I want to throw the peg out further. Next year, I want to speak at VeeCon. Like it kind of creates that feeling in you, like, am I throwing the peg out there far enough? And I think one of the things Gary would say, if you really sat down and talked to him, is everybody knows he wants to own the New York Jets. But if you asked him, like, if he were to have a windfall where he could buy the New York Jets next year, I truly believe he'd actually be disappointed that he had the ability to buy the Jets. He says he wants to buy the Jets because in his mind, what he did was throw the peg so far out there to such a crazy target that it would take a lifetime of execution to get there. So I think if he actually had the ability next year to buy the Jets, there'd probably be a part of him that would actually be a little bit disappointed, because I think he wanted a goal that was so outrageous that it would require a lifetime of effort to get there. And I think when you're around people like that, it encourages you to be like, it's probably a stretch for me to speak on the stage at VeeCon when you really look at all the people that are on that agenda, but throwing the peg out there, and I'm going to work at it, and I'm going to try to do what I can do to make it happen, and we'll see. And even if I don't end up on that stage next year, my suspicion is I will be way further ahead than I would have been if I never tried to go after that goal. So,
yeah, I love it. I love it.
So
it's definitely.
What about you? What about you? What do you think as far as, like, I mean, I know you've asked me some of my thoughts on the event, what I came home with, like I'm interested to hear because I feel like you're already very forward thinking and pushing, but obviously, you probably came away with a couple ideas, a couple thoughts.
That's it. It's like you can feel like you're pushing, but an event like this to me left me feeling like there's so much more to do. It kind of broadened my scope on both how it could be done, within our community, as well as how our community can impact the community. So meaning like the whole society, right? So like, and just, Carrie said so much more. It's there's no more hours in the day, and I don't plan on sleeping less, but I feel within me that I'm already, from the day I got back, I already see, and I feel it's going to continue to be able to do more in a day, take on more things. And I feel like there's kind of a refresh of the creativity and the energy. It wasn't gone, or I didn't think it was even less than 100%, but now what it feels like, maybe it's at 200%.
Well, and when you just see, like, I know you and I were talking a lot at the event, it's just like looking at the sheer scale of everything that was done, the rigging that was used for the screens and the speakers. It's just like, it just gives you an idea of, like, puts everything into perspective of like how much, like, I know you guys put on an unbelievable, event, Carlos and everybody last year, but then you see that and you're just like, man, I mean, not that you're going to run out Lucas Oil Stadium, but my point is, probably a couple of years ago, a lot of people, I mean, it's crazy to think, because when you think like 11 years is a long time. That first picture of mine with Gary was 11 years ago. And you think, man, that's a long time ago. But when I met Gary,
Do you want me to play the video so the picture can come up?
No. Don't.
Go ahead.
But when I first met him, he was just starting to potentially like explore out from being basically the guy running his dad's wine business. And when you look at where he's at now, you're like, yeah, 11 years is not it seems like a long period of time, but he's accomplished a ton in 11 years. I mean, it's like
11 years can fly by. It goes quick. It's long and it's short. That is time. He
went from not really, I joke around when I talk to people, like, I knew him before he was Gary Vee, because at that time he was Gary Vaynerchuk. Like, it's like, but my point is, 10 years he set out, and I'm like super impressed because I mean, obviously in that same 10 years, I feel like my career, I built a company and things like that, but certainly didn't accomplish as much in the last 11 years as Gary did. Not even by close, you know.
It's not a race, Pat. Just saying.
No, I'm not saying it's a race. I'm saying it makes you realize how much is possible.
Right. I get you.
Because he didn't really have a lot. A lot of people don't know. A lot of people think Gary built a really successful business for his dad, and then that's what fueled, him being able to launch VaynerMedia. But when he left his dad's company, he intentionally didn't take anything. Like his dad didn't give him like, hey, you helped me build this big company. Here's a couple $1 million to go start something else. He literally started VaynerMedia. His buddy owned a company called Buddy Media in New York City. And him and his brother, AJ, actually started VaynerMedia by his friend that owned Buddy Media, allowing them in the initial months to essentially use the conference room at Buddy Media to launch VaynerMedia. They were like begging, borrowing, and, just asking for handouts to like have a place to meet. And like, so it's not like he had a leg up on any one of us. He started right.
And Pat, even if he had a leg up on it, I think to bring it back to your question, the answer really is you come away from that event feeling I know how much he's impacted me throughout the time I followed him. I know he's impacted you, and you see thousands and thousands of people that he's impacting in person, and then millions and millions reach online. That's the game, is changing people's lives in a positive way, impacting people in a positive way, whether he's answering a question to somebody about something they fear, or whether he's inspiring them to go out and work towards something, or making them feel like, hey, it's not too late, or you're just very early. I mean, he's touched millions and millions and millions of people's lives. And it's been so impactful, from teaching people how to make money at garage sales or from selling things around their house, all the way up to high level corporate marketing and Super Bowl ads. So, and everything in between.
Which
that
is really
is
funny.
Fucking incredible.
Yeah. We talked to each other at the show, and I said, the funniest thing is, like, my kids who are now 17 and 15, they've known, like, when I went up to VaynerMedia in New York and things like that, but they never really cared or never really thought anything about it because they really didn't. Gary was irrelevant to them. But now my kids, when they knew I was coming to VeeCon, they're like, oh, Gary, like, he's the yard sale guy, because they know Gary is the guy on TikTok that's always going to the garage sales and the yard sales. So it's like he literally has this whole other chapter of his life and people that he's impacting that are totally like, it doesn't have anything to do with his marketing company or all the different things he's involved with. To my kids, he's the yard sale guy, but he's impacting that generation in another way to show them how you can get into flip culture and buy stuff and sell it for more and things like that. So I think you're right. He's impacted millions of people, but the crazy thing is he's not just done that in one lane. He's done that in several lanes.
Right.
It's crazy.
He's somebody that has always been, in my eyes, the person on the internet that gives the most value and advice that you can trust with asking nothing from you. He's always been that person. I mean, there's now, and I feel like he was definitely obviously like a pioneer of the give to your community, and maybe don't have to make money from your community. He spoke a lot about, and he's never let it down, like he's always, somebody that you can trust to listen to, that you can get authentic value from. So super appreciative.
I think I think I told you at the show, I'm sure I've shared it with you before. Like, I knew nothing about NFTs. I still would say I'm largely, I'm not as well versed as I should be. I 1,000% bought VeeFriends ones based on a conversation that I had with Gary, and there was a Zoom call that we had several years ago that he was on with a small group of us, and along with Nick, who works for Gary. And literally I felt he's done so much for me that I was like, I invested a fairly decent chunk of money based just on the fact that it's like, if he's asking me to do it, I'm going to just as a way to say thank you for everything he's done. If this thing goes to 0, I'm okay. Because if he's asking me to do it, like to your point, he's instilled he never asks. So when I was on that Zoom call with him and it was like 49 of us on this Zoom call that he called everybody together to talk about VeeFriends 1. And right after I got off that call, I said to my wife, I'm going to buy several of these. And she's like, well, what are they? And I'm like, I don't even really know. But Gary's never asked me for anything. And he's actually asking us.
There's sketches of a hamster and a bear.
Yeah, no, but I said to my wife, I'm like, I don't really know, but that's the first ask that's ever happened. So I was like, no, without question, I was like, I'm doing it. Even if it goes to 0, I'm okay with that. But to your point, he's given, and I feel like you are very much the same, Eric. And I think a lot of people in this industry would feel the same way, is that you give. And a lot of people sometimes might even suspiciously be like, what's Eric's ulterior motive here? Because it just seems like it doesn't make sense. All the giving doesn't make sense. So I actually feel like you're following in a similar vein to that, and the fact that I think most people in this industry are like, Gary, Eric has given so much to me, given so much to the industry, and he's never asked for anything.
Well, thank you for the comparison, because it's a huge compliment. There's no doubt that Gary Vee has been my inspiration for understanding that kind of mentality of how to live your life and how business can work, building business that is happy business and helps people and so on. So I appreciate you making that comparison. And I think to your point of sometimes it can maybe not make sense to people. I honestly, I just hope to keep doing it until it makes sense to everyone, because it should make sense as the way to do things. It can be tricky potentially because you might not feel like you're in a position to do it, but I feel like there's always ways to do it. There's always ways to be impactful. There's not the way or a way, but it's important to find a way.
Yeah, I agree. I think that, whether you're talking about, the one that I had a conversation with somebody recently, and I just said, the one thing I think you have to, longevity, I'm trying to think of the best way to say it. It's like longevity is undefeated. Like if you really want to determine who somebody is, like watch them over a period of time. Somebody can say certain things, they could put on a face, they could act a certain way, whatever, over a short period of time. But when you actually see them continue down a certain path and continue to do those things year after year after year, it starts to speak to the character of that person and things like that. And I think that, I always look at, like, I try not to get too high or too low.
Damn, Pat, you try not to get too high?
Yeah, no, I try to get either too high or too low on somebody in a short window of time.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, because I feel like somebody could have a really bad season of their life and you could potentially view them in a negative way.
Yeah.
And somebody could also put on a front for a period of time and really look like a great person. And then that house of cards falls apart. So to me, it's kind of like time is undefeated. Ultimately, things, come out in the wash over a period of time.
Yep. And it's a marathon. It's a long life, hopefully, that, we all have ahead of us, hopefully, whatever we're graced with. And, we're here together, guiding each other through whatever this experience is, Pat, do you want to wrap this up?
Or? Marco keeps saying, okay, now every time Uncle Pat says, hit the Austin 360 beat. So I didn't realize until Carlos said, like he was doing the spoof on me, that I said that so much. So
I don't think it was the it was was it I don't.
Maybe it might be my way of getting around saying because some people say I don't really say but maybe that's my trigger. I
didn't catch the part, but yeah. Marco, see, I said the I do throw in once in a while, maybe too often.
So I did want to ask you, though, you had asked me earlier, what was your favorite speaker and what specifically was the favorite if you could wrap it all up in like a single quote that you walked away and were like, man, that's gold right there.
The favorite speaker was Gary Vee's keynote at the end, the final keynote, 100%. Like that was it. And the gold that I took away from it was, it wasn't what he said specifically. It was that he put on an event in an arena jam-packed with valuable, like people that can provide valuable insight. And he did all this for his community. And he went on stage, and for that 30-minute final keynote, he just wanted to like use that time to help the community by addressing their questions and their fears and so on. And like he granted they had sponsors and so on, but like he put all that together, and it 100% feels like he put all that together and spent every inch, like you said, every moment running around, just trying to provide value to his community. And that,
hey, do you have the ability, if I airdropped you or if I texted you a video, do you have the ability to share that on the screen?
Patrick, I'm coming to you from the corner of technology and innovation. Of course I have.
All right. I'm going to send you the selfie that he shot with my employee, Ronnie. And I think that is like the fact that he takes that much time with every person there, if they want the time, I think was, to your point.
You have the one that he took with Rob with the mask on by chance?
That was awesome that Rob wore the mask. I was impressed. I thought that there was no way that he was going to wear that mask standing next to Gary, but Gary was down for it, and Rob put it on. To Rob's credit, he put it on, which I kind of was like, no effing way that's going to happen.
I wonder if Rob could get you to put the mask on when you go up on stage for your talk.
I'm sure he'll ask, but the answer is no already.
Where did you send the picture? Through Facebook or through text message?
I texted it to you.
Beautiful. That's what I like. There it is.
So
it's a video.
This was movie, yeah? Ronnie, who works for me, that I brought to the event. This was a video he got. He talked to Gary, and you'll get the gist of it in the video. But my point to what Eric was saying was, I mean, I feel like Gary was willing to take that kind of time with every single person in that building, which, seemingly he has a way to scale the unscalable, like nobody I've ever seen. And not just him. I think I've shared a couple stories with you at the event of his team that I'm just like, I'm blown. It's not just Gary. It's like everybody in his immediate ecosphere is the same way, which is a testament to him. Cause it's like, I think you even said, it's like, he's built like nobody's built an organization, a community like he has. And it's hard to argue with that once you experience it.
All right. Well, here's Ronnie and here's the video.
You go, you tell him.
I've got this birthmark, but it doesn't matter.
Nobody gives a fuck.
Yeah, it's one of those things. Just be yourself. Be true to you. It doesn't matter.
What you think is a big deal in 2nd and 5th and 9th grade means absolutely fucking nothing for
So anyway, I'm just saying, I mean, I think Ronnie came in, and I don't want to speak for Ronnie or put him on the spot, but he shared with me, throughout a decent part of his life, he's been a little bit self-conscious about the fact that he's got that birthmark. And he said he's relied a lot over the years on just listening to Gary and telling himself it really doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. So he gets a chance to spend a couple moments with Gary, and that's the video that and I'm like, how awesome is that? I mean, just awesome.
Marco wants to know if It's Just a Cup of Coffee may come back.
I plan on, I'd love to bring it back. The biggest thing I want to do is there's obviously a lot of people shooting, doing podcasts now. So I kind of have been a little bit, I don't want to say stuck, but I know I've talked to Eric about this. I really want to come back with something that's a little bit different. I don't just want to have, another podcast. And so I kind of have been brainstorming on what I could do with It's Just a Cup of Coffee that's a little bit unique and a little bit not just another thing that's wrong with any of the podcasts that are out there. But I think we've got plenty of people that are having, podcasts. So I kind of, if I do it, I want to do something that's a little bit different. And I'm still playing around with some ideas of how to do that.
Very cool.
Marketing Mondays will probably be back sooner as opposed to later. I'm taking a short vacation at the beginning of June with my family, and my plan is to bring back Marketing Mondays very quickly after that vacation.
All right.
But as you can see, I'm still wearing the hat, so it's not going anywhere.
Good.
Shout out to Carrie for the design. I think she's maybe still in here.
Yeah. Clubhouse.
I don't know. Where'd we leave? We just sort of like Clubhouse, just sort of, I think we left it at like, if there's reason to have,
I think it proved its purpose and time, but like it proved that like the platform didn't really take off, right? Like that's part of a platform. You want to be on a platform people are on, or one that, at least if people aren't on it, it provides unique value. And it feels like when we can do this so easily, granted it's different, but I don't know. You're right. It was different than this, but it just kind of felt like the platform kind of died off. So it need to be rethought. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I think it's a great sort of thing to think about with regard to business and or marketing, though, as well as like that platform was red hot for
2
6
weeks.
months to a year. But
Yeah.
it isn't all that it doesn't always stay. I think a lot of people like to think like, hey, whether it's marketing or whatever it is, that they fall in love with what was yesterday. And I think one of the things I think Clubhouse is like, when it came on, you and I and Carlos talked and we jumped on that platform and we did a lot of cool things. But then, we were okay with walking away from it, like when the next chapter kind of opened up. And I think there's other things, as you mentioned. I know, Josh is saying Twitter Spaces killed Clubhouse. It's a feature of Twitter now, but I don't know as many people. I agree with you, Josh, but I don't know as many people that are using Twitter Spaces. Is like at one point in time, like it felt like anybody that was kind of anywhere in the know was talking about Clubhouse and was using Clubhouse. And now I don't feel like it's really a buzz at all. I don't really feel like anybody's using it.
No.
But that doesn't mean anything was wrong with it or anything like that. For that season of time, it was a platform that really served a purpose. And now we moved on to other things.
It was definitely a good time. And for the year or so that we did it, I thought it was an awesome time. It's just, like you said, the platform didn't really take off. And sometimes there's addition by subtraction. And by subtracting that, it can breed new time and light to something else.
Yeah, I mean, if nothing else, when Clubhouse was at its peak, you weren't doing Tint Wizdom, and I think everybody is super stoked that it's back because for a while you didn't shoot Tint Wizdom, and now now you're doing it again. So I think everybody's excited about that and happy that you're doing them again. And during that Clubhouse season, you weren't really shooting any Tint Wisdoms.
Yep, that's the case. I'm glad to be doing them. Thank you for obviously the kind words, and I appreciate everybody listening, watching, and of course, Patrick, today you joining. It's a lot of fun, frankly, and I'm super glad to be doing it again. I enjoy beyond enjoy it, put it that way. Thoroughly enjoy doing this. I feel like the thoughts run through my head to do like 7 days straight, 24-hour marathon. There's all sorts of ideas. So I probably enjoy it too much. So you're probably going to have more and more of Tint Wizdom coming up in different fashions.
Dude, I think that, like I said, I mean, you're always thoughtful. You always ask good questions. I think you always bring on guests that can illuminate things, one way or the other. So I think from that perspective, it really brings value to the industry. So, I think, like I said, I think that I'm interested to see over the next coming weeks where, some things that you do coming out of, because I have a feeling like looking at you at VeeCon, the wheels were just turning. And I know that it's like, I'm like, oh, the next 6 months, there's going to be some cool stuff coming out of Tint Wiz, just because I could see, like, even when you were looking at like how the floor was set up and how things were arranged. And I just was like, you could just see you weren't just taking it in. It was like the wheels were like turning, and I'm like, I'm excited to see what comes out of that.
I mean, I just feel like I never feel like I'm inventing an idea. It's like you're getting inspiration from places, and that place was full of inspiration. You know, you're getting inspiration from people and places and other people's execution on things, and you put it in one side and see where it comes out the other side. And
Josh actually asked a pretty interesting question.
Who's that? Which one?
Josh said, how much talk was there about AI implementations at VeeCon?
I thought a fair bit. And to me, the general tone was, don't buy the hype of the fear or anything like that. Get to using it, like figure out you're going to make money if you can find a way to leverage the AI technology for your own business. That's going to be the way you can really potentially make a lot of money. It's not necessarily about, building a platform per se, but it's just about finding a way to leverage it so that you can basically exploit that opportunity while it's an opportunity, and using it, because you have to be using it to know how it works. If you've used ChatGPT for a day, kind of laughed and had fun and found some crazy things a day or two and then stopped, it's not the same as if you use it every day or two for the last month. Those are two different skill sets. You might think you know what's going on, but there's more to it. And I think that was the general tone. Don't buy into the bullshit of like, it's going to take over the world or whatever. Could happen, but there's no point of buying into that.
I think it falls into what's probably good advice with regard to any new technology or any new platform. It's just like, I'm not saying somebody should be using AI right now, but you need to at least familiarize yourself with what's going on. I mean, and understand how these platforms work and what's going on. I think that there's going to be some really great things that, chat from a marketing perspective that like AI can do going forward. But I also think there's some things that I watched something today that talked about how this was kind of freaky, that they could run a brain scan on somebody and run the actual brain waves through an AI program, and it can literally come pretty close to figuring out like what you were thinking. Nice. Which was like, it wasn't exact, but it was close. And I was like, that's kind of interesting. I mean, but they were talking about like, okay, you look at that and you're like, okay, well, what's a bit, but the application was, what about somebody that's disabled and does not have the ability to talk? And if AI can get to a point where it can tell what somebody's thinking and generate a voice based on what somebody's thinking, it could give somebody that doesn't have the ability to talk right now the ability to talk. So
hell yeah,
I think there's going to be some super exciting things that come out of AI, and some things that just sort of fall on the floor. And but I think you have to kind of be aware of what the capabilities are and understand like how it might be used. I think in the very near future, there very well might be the ability for everybody to integrate an AI-based chat window on their website to where AI could literally probably speak conversationally to somebody that has questions about your business in a way that, a chat bot doesn't have the ability to do right now. So I think there's going to be some very practical, very practical applications for it. And some people are saying that just are never going to come to fruition. So.
Well, I think the idea is you're not going to benefit from trying to predict the future. You're going to benefit from kind of taking advantage of the current, like knowing the landscape and reacting and being aware of what's there now versus predicting too far in advance. But there's definitely some AI talk at the event, and mostly positive.
Yeah, I would say if you guys are using ChatGPT to generate content for your like a website or a blog, I would probably
hold on. I'm sorry to interrupt you. Do you want to leave a cliffhanger and make this a topic of one of your next talks?
What, like on here or
anywhere? It could be anywhere. But what I'm saying is, you're about to say, hey, I've got this tip about AI and about marketing. It's coming from Powerhouse Pat. And I'm wondering if you want to kind of maybe not reveal what that
I
is
love
right
how
now.
you like just build the cliffhanger. I'm ready to just throw it all out there. And you're like, no.
I get it. But what an amazing potentially speaking possibility that could be in one of this upcoming potential either live web events or maybe one of the in-person events coming up.
Well, I would be happy to hold back. I mean, I understand what you're saying. I do feel like one suggestion I'd have, and whether it happens in Tint Wizdom, whether it happens in It's Just a Cup of Coffee, whatever the case may be. Oh, I see Aaron joined us. Aaron, we played your video. I hope you're okay with that. We actually played your video without your permission, but I think
we'll edit it out if there's any problems.
Yeah. So anyway, I do feel like whether it's Just a Cup of Coffee, Tint Wizdom, I love that multi-person, the way that they ran a lot of those panels at VeeCon. I think there's like, this is a two-way conversation, which is great, but I love the way that they kind of ran like with 3 and 4 people at a time in a moderated sort of format. And I think that it was really conversational. And I really think it was like 3-4 really brilliant people talking to each other. And we just had the benefit of listening in to that conversation, which was really, really cool.
Absolutely.
So
should we put a ribbon on it?
I think so. Yeah. We're at what we had a little bit over an hour and a half. So.
Okay. Well,
congratulations, Dennis, on winning the VeeCon ticket. That's freaking awesome.
Congratulations, Dennis. I can't wait to see you at VeeCon 2024. Amongst hopefully I see everybody there, because between now and then we're going to keep promoting this event because it's such a valuable event. If you're not sure why, listen to this again and hopefully you'll understand.
By the way, Carrie, I know you were bummed out. Like next year, we're going to find a way to get Carrie there too. You got to be there, Carrie. I mean, seriously, you got to be there.
Carrie has to be there. We will figure out a way to capture her and bring her to wherever the event is. So,
but yeah, I think that let's put a ribbon on it. But I feel like there's a lot more. I'm thinking there's going to be a lot more opportunities to speak, because I think you're going to be just look. I know you're not sharing stuff specifically tonight because you got your wheels turning, and I'm super excited to see. I'm super excited to see when those things start hitting. So, and it's the great thing about when you get ideas is you're one of the, of the people I know, you're one of the people that I know, like, not only will have the idea, will execute against it. So I'm super excited to see the execution, because I know you've got the ideas coming out of VeeCon, but they won't stay ideas. I know they'll actually get executed against. So
thank you. I appreciate it. I take that as an enormous compliment. I sincerely appreciate you saying that, Pat.
Yep. So, all right, man.
All right. Well, Pat, thank you so much for sharing your time at VeeCon and making that whole thing happen, because you definitely influenced me to be there. I don't know if I would have been there without your influence over a year ago regarding VeeCon. So thank you. And thank you for doing this. And of course, thank you for everyone for watching, supporting, commenting, and so on. It means absolutely everything, literally. So
absolutely. And stay tuned. We got, like I said, probably mid to late June, you'll see Marketing Mondays fire back up. And Ronnie, if you're still in the chat, I've committed us both to start up Marketing Mondays by the end of June. So let's get it together.
Cool. All right. That's a wrap. We'll see you next week. I'm going to be with Dean Mitchell. We're going to be talking, and it's going to be a good time. So next week, same time, same place. There's only one way to end this. You know how it's going to be ended. Here we go.
We talked about in a recent article I wrote was about how much noise, if you will, is out on social media.